Welcome to the Caribbean Property Investing Podcast, where we share real-life experiences for successful Caribbean property entrepreneurs. Learn about their successes, challenges, and strategies to help you create your plan for financial freedom. Now let's get started.
Bank of St. Lucia Visa credit card for everyday people, everyday moments.
To ruminate, to create your ultimate living space. And at Courts, you'll find what you need. Choose from our wide range of furniture, electronics, and accessories to complete your space. We're here and ready to assist. Give us a call to place your order. Shop online at shopcourts.com or visit us in store. So ruminate at Courts, bringing value home.
Welcome to episode 30 of the Caribbean Property Investing Podcast. This is our final episode for 2021, and we are going to be ending with a bang. Today, during this festive season, I have my sorrel, already almost done. We finally have a guest I've been waiting to have on the show for such a long time. She's very busy, super busy, because she is a super host. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to our show, Mrs. Christine Laurent Edwin. Welcome to the show, Christine.
Thank you, Mr. Mathra. It's a pleasure to be here. I must say I have been delinquent and not really wanting to participate because I'm shy a little and perhaps I'm a little private. But finally, it's almost the last day in the year, and I think maybe I should do this. If it's going to help others, I think I should do it.
I feel so fortunate that we're able to do it before the year end, and I think almost, with all due respect to my other 28 or so guests, we saved, one of the best episodes for last, and primarily because of the information we plan to cover tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the area of vacation rentals, short-term rentals primarily, and rentals that use the international marketing platforms, Airbnb, Booking.com, VRBO, Flipkey, TripAdvisor, and the like. Today, we're going to give you some insight into what it takes to, first of all, set it up, and some of the challenges from a super host. Christine has been in the business for a while, but let's not hear it from me. Christine, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before this vacation rental business?
Well, actually, I started off as a school teacher. I taught in a number of schools on island, primary, secondary, private schools. I quite enjoyed it while I did it, but somewhere along the line, I thought that perhaps I could change a little and do something that I absolutely love. I did private rentals, that is, I rented out my apartments in my home, long term initially. But when I did step out of the teaching, I was actually encouraged by another friend of mine, Maria, actually, and she told me that perhaps I could try this. I was doing it for personal reasons. I'd gone through something really, really traumatic, and I somehow didn't want to be around the teaching scene again. So she said to me, perhaps this would help. And I took her word and I dived into it. And to date, it has been quite interesting, quite successful, quite a wonderful experience.
Christine, I want to ask you something. I know that you left teaching because of the experience, but I still want to know what subjects did you teach? Because you have a specialization, don't you?
Well, I did like music quite a lot. So I taught music in all the schools that I taught. I did the common entrance for a while. I did math at a secondary school. Yes, actually, but music is really my specialty.
So I was a teacher as well, and it was rewarding. But there comes a time when, if it's not for you, you need to make that move, and you made that move. Tell us, how did you actually start? How did you get involved in the long term and or short term, the rental business altogether? Where did you start?
Well, first I started long term. I was having a very difficult time with my renovations at my house and my mortgage. It was quite a challenge because, of course, you know that teachers don't get that much money. I don't think they get enough money. I still don't think they do. And completing a house or with the limited mortgage that you're allowed is very, very challenging. And so I took the decision to sort of rent parts of my house whilst I completed the other parts. And that's how I did the long-term rental. I did that for about, say, 3 years. And afterwards, like I said, I was introduced to the short-term rental, specifically Airbnb. I did TripAdvisor as well, but I must say that my Airbnb experience has been the most successful. So I did the Airbnb, and so far it has
One,
been
one of
quite,
one of the one
quite
of
good.
the pieces of information I came across when I just met you was the fact that you have been a super host for a number of years when I joined the platform,
Yes,
with more
that's
than
true.
100 great reviews. What I wanted
Yes.
to get into now is, how did you go about creating the subdivision or the units that you have? Because there's an interesting revelation about your skill set.
Well, Mr. Mathre, my story is quite a unique one. I think I have been blessed with a lot of talents. I am very skilled in carpentry, plumbing, masonry, and the works. You just tell me something or show it to me once, and somehow it catches on and I can do it. If someone comes to my house to do a job, trust me, they won't return because I can do it after that, especially the masonry part. Now, when I started doing my Airbnb, I didn't have enough. I started as a shared space upstairs. That's where I lived. So we were allowed to do shared rentals. So essentially, the guests would come to your house and you would rent out maybe an extra bedroom. We had 3 bedrooms upstairs. So we lived in 1 bedroom and they shared 1 bathroom. We had our own bathroom. So we had this shared sort of accommodation, which worked out quite well for a number of years. And as time progressed, I had more and more persons trying to book my accommodation. So it necessitated me having more apartments, and I
Christian,
kept on
take up, let's
adding
take up
on
in
and adding on.
what you're saying there. For in my it's mind blowing to me.
Really?
Husband and wife
Yes.
deciding
Husband and
to
wife,
actually share
yes, just the two of
two
us.
of the
We
bedrooms
lived together, yes, and we did
with
shared
strangers.
accommodation. So,
And this
yes.
is not America.
So,
This is St. Lucia. So,
yes.
how did your husband initially react to the idea, the notion of having a stranger or strangers share his marital home and his space with him?
I must tell you, Ansel, he was never too thrilled with the idea, but he's been very supportive. He's been supportive. But I can tell you, even to date, he is not quite thrilled with the idea of his wife having to host, especially in the same space. Thank God to COVID, we don't do shared spaces anymore. So we just let out apartments and we're not really part of that living
Now,
arrangement. But in the past, go to
sorry, go ahead.
work. And he'd come back home and he would be prancing up the stairs. He's so happy. He's probably caught a fish or something. And he's coming up the steps and I'm saying to him, stop, 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 stop. You can't come upstairs. There are people upstairs. We have a booking upstairs. And he's like, where are my clothes? And I says, I put it downstairs. And he's going to give me the biggest choops in the world. Poor man, he has no idea that there are people upstairs in his room. He's like, where are my clothes? And we're asking, where are my clothes? Because in the accommodation, we'd have a wardrobe. It would have two doors. One side would be our clothes, and then the empty door would be for the guests. So even our things stayed up there. I'd have a basket ready with our stuff in it. And I know I have to have my husband's working clothes, his shoes, his underwears, everything, our perfumes in a basket that we're going to move with just in case there's a booking, depending on where we are.
What did your family and friends think about your business / living situation?
Well, I don't know. They just always said, Christine, I don't know how you do this. I couldn't do this. And I thought, well, you have to do what you have to do to survive, especially with a difficult mortgage that I had at the time. The bank says, Christine, do what you have to pay the mortgage. And I thought, Christine, do what you have to do and rent at all costs. So it was working out. My guests loved my company and they loved my accommodation. So it was working very well for me. So I kept on adding on, and then it made it possible to handle the mortgage a little better, Yes.
I don't want us to move on yet. I don't want us to move on yet. Just bear with me. So what you okay, so you said that necessity forced you to do that.
Indeed.
I was saying earlier, a lot of our listeners always ask about starting, how to start. This is certainly one way to start.
Indeed, you have to
have
like
courage.
You have 2 bedrooms. You give out one, and then eventually you end up with 11 bedrooms like we have now, But we really started off with just 3 bedrooms in one space. So now we have 5 apartments with 11 bedrooms. Yes.
Christine, what measures did you take to ensure of your safety? So we know that Airbnb, you have to have on the booking platforms, you have to have your 2 forms of ID, so they have your information. But there could still be horror stories. So what measures did you take in particular to protect yourself and your possession and your family?
The thing is, I really trusted Airbnb, perhaps naively, but I thought that Airbnb verified the guests. They had a prison record checked and everything like that. I'm assuming that's the thought that I had. They had to give 2 forms of ID, like you said, and I trusted Airbnb. So I thought I put a set of rules on my page, and I thought if they met those requirements, then it's okay for them to come. And of course, I crossed my fingers and a little bit of faith in God. I also asked him to protect me. And I went for it, And I can tell you, I've done this for 6 years. And I have been quite safe to date. Lucky me. And being a super host, all 16 seasons in a row.
So the idea of the shared economy is that you have suppliers of a service and you have consumers of a service. And there is a lot of transparency where the consumers rate the suppliers and the suppliers rate the consumers. So the host rate the guests and the guests rate the host. So it's in everyone's interest, or in both parties' interest, the supply side and the demand side, to ensure that they both give a good account of themselves, because
Indeed.
we have to get reviewed. And so
Right.
nobody wants a bad review, because if you have a bad review as a host, people will not come to your place. And if you have a bad review as
Indeed.
a guest, people will not accept your booking. So
Precisely.
there is that regulation. Is that was that was a security measure that I guess that's built in, that we use.
Right.
But
Yes, it
for the
is.
benefit of our listeners, Airbnb does not check your police record. All they check is the
It
two
doesn't.
two verified forms of your ID, so they know where to find you for government and police.
I was so confident that everything was checked. That's what made me do this. So I'm happy I took the chance because it has worked. And I must say, I've had only wonderful, I have had a few demanding guests, I must say. There was this one time when there was this sort of a problem with the water system in St. Lucia where we had no water and the water was cut and so on because they were perhaps repairing a damaged main. That affected the entire island. And the guests were not having it. They wanted water running on their backs, and there was no water anywhere. And it's the time when most people tried to book other places because they just wanted to go somewhere with running water. So I say that was probably a challenging time for me because the water in the water tank, it emptied, it completed, it was totally out. I had to carry water, take it upstairs, put it in the tub, and even ask the guests if they want me to pour it on them, I'd do it. Because let me tell you, they wanted water running on their backs. That time I had to prepare dinner for free for the guests in order to keep them happy. And let me tell you, still, after doing all this, they were not totally happy. They still called Airbnb and wanted part of their money back. It was just a challenging time. Make the guests feel comfortable, make them feel secure. So it's really challenging. I don't think it's for everyone, but if you're brave, go ahead.
No, but I think every country does that. Every country, you don't hide the facts, but you try to shield certain
No,
certain constituents from bad news. But at the same time, I think fundamentally, while you do that, you still want to protect them by having secured premises and by giving them guidance as to where they should and maybe not go.
right. Now, there's no secret to it. I am in the city. I'm not going to highlight exact locations. And the cities always pose sort of a challenge for rentals because most activities happen, whether good or bad, happens in the city center. And that's where I am. So it's been very challenging, but somehow I've protected my guests. They don't know a thing about the challenges in my little corner of the
Christine,
world.
I want to go back to something that you were saying earlier.
Mhm,
After I saw your reviews online, I called you up and I came by,
mhm,
and I actually saw all of the work that you did yourself, including masonry, as you said, and carpentry, which actually absolutely blew my mind. I was so impressed, and I've been a fan since. Why don't you share with the audience how you transition from upstairs to the units that you have around the property downstairs, and what was the thinking behind what were the next steps, and what was your next offering?
And well, there was one time I had a booking for a group of 19 players from France. They were coming to do a rugby tournament in St. Lucia. And of course, I only had 3 bedrooms to start with, including the one that I slept with. But I still accepted the booking now. So
Wow.
when that happens, you are supposed to make it happen. So I did have to add the extra space. And I had to do it myself. I got a little help here and there, but with a lack of funds, you do have to find the skills and within yourself and to make this happen. So I built the space. I bought some wood. I made beds temporary. I made the beds on my parking lot. I bought the wood and I made the beds and I painted them. And let me tell you, when you put a nice cover and a nice bed skirt on a piece of plywood, yes, plywood, and a few 1x6 boards on the edges, there's no telling what you're sleeping on. As long as you have a comfortable mattress, it's a great bed. The guests don't go looking at the bed, under the bed, or the leg. They just want to sleep
It's true. It's
peacefully. And
true.
I accomplished that. I made the beds. But as time progressed, you want to have a great bed. So ever so often you go down to the hardware store and you purchase a bed and you get rid of the made bed. But I had to make the bed. Sometimes I have to borrow a bed from someone so that I can make it happen. And I did. That time I had the 19 guests. I didn't have a place to sleep myself. So my husband and I, we slept in the laundry room at the time. Of course, he had to complain every night. Oh, mosquitoes biting me. I can't, I feel a cockroach on my back. And I said to him, just be quiet. We have to make the sacrifice. Come on, it's just a weekend. I tell you, I have to apologize to my husband half the time because I've put him through hell. But with a little hell, there is success, And today we are a little more comfortable than we were before.
I mean, so the whole point of the discussion is to go through the steps, but the stories, the real experience that you are relaying to us there, for me, it's and maybe some of the soil is spiked,
It's real,
but
answer. It's
I'm
real.
so blown away by the story. So okay, so then you added a couple of rooms. What was the lead time that you had after you got the booking to when the guests were to arrive? 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks?
Sometimes you have about 3 weeks. Sometimes you have at least a month, to make it happen. I just heard a guest of mine walking in. Perhaps I can call her to say hello because she's been very, very nice. She's been here for, actually, her initial booking was for 12 nights, but then she had a bit of an issue going to her next accommodation. And then she called me back the same day and says, Christine, can I come back to you? Can we come back? Because we can't find our host and our location is not quite what we thought it was going to be. And I said,
Yes, yes.
sure. She's actually a blogger. She actually booked my place so that she can sort of promote it. And I was a little skeptical, but it has been a nice experience and they've been wonderful guests. She's actually checking out on Saturday. She's going back to Philadelphia. Yeah.
Good. Christine, in terms, I think it's important to point out your offering because for my vacation rentals, I just give you a room, I have a minimum of a 5 day stay. But tell the audience what's your minimum and what is included in your rental or your nightly charge.
Okay. We have, like I would say, at first we had shared spaces. That is, you can, in the 3-bedroom apartment, you can book a bedroom and you would share the kitchen, the living room, the balcony, and stuff like that. Although there are 2 bathrooms, there was one that was absolutely shared. So two bedrooms would share 1 bathroom, and there was the ensuite bedroom. It had its own, of course, bathroom inside. Now, a guest who booked that sort of accommodation, although there were kitchen utensils and there was a kitchen, to sort of avoid congestion and bumping into each other, what I would do is to offer to cook, to make breakfast for guests who had shared accommodation. So they all had breakfast together. So sometimes you'd have a guest from France in 1 bedroom, a guest from Sweden, and a guest from New York or London. And they met at the breakfast table because I prepared breakfast for them. So that was a shared accommodation. And a shared accommodation would range anywhere from 60 US a night, 55 US a night with the cleaning fee of about 15 to 20 US. So that was it. So anybody who had shared spaces would have as low as 60 US a night with a $15.
And you have no minimum night.
No, I would take from 1 night as the minimum, yes. Especially when I started. When things get a little tough, I would say book 3 nights, But for a very long time, I allowed 1 night minimum. Yes. Even today, I
What
still
would you
have 1 night.
what would you typically offer in the breakfast?
Oh, well, the breakfast was extravagant because I was not doing the breakfast for profits. I was adding the breakfast. So essentially, they just paid for the products that were offered in the breakfast. So a breakfast would be fried plantain, scrambled eggs, or perhaps omelette, potato wedges, sometimes a salad, coffee, tea, or juice, or all three would be offered. Like I said, I don't live in a space where guests can just walk out and just go to a restaurant or anything. So I wanted to make sure that the guests were comfortable and they felt like they were at a resort. So I offered everything at breakfast, but really what they paid for was exactly what was on the table. My services were sort of free, I would think, because it was such a low cost. I think breakfast was like 25 EC, basically.
And the thing about your offering, and one of the reasons I think that you've been successful in being a super host for
Is
16 straight
because I
seasons
offered
is
breakfast,
because
yes.
you always there. Breakfast, I thought it
And
was
I'm
because you were
always there,
always
yes,
there.
yes. I try to be there at all times that my guests need me. Yes, I do. I accompany my guests to business meetings. I take them on tours. I would pick up at the airport, depending on the number of guests that I have. I would sit and talk with them. I would take them on a garden tour outside my house or my mom's garden. Yes, so I was always there.
Christine, in all of our discussions so far, and I always have to do this, I always have to think of the questions that our listeners want to ask. And some you went ahead, Christine went ahead. She just said that she built downstairs. But how did she furnish downstairs? She did say that she actually built some of the beds and stuff. But a question, Christine, is as you expand from more units, how do you actually furnish them? How do you actually, raise the capital to get what's required so they can actually get rented? We had a previous episode where I recommend that you can go to courts, get higher purchase, and pay it off quicker than the 36 months. That's one option. How
Yeah.
were you able to do it?
Well, actually, Ansem, I don't know if you've heard of the flea market. That's the place in Banan that sells the furniture from the ship. That helped a lot with a super host because the items there, although they're used, they are of really high quality. I mean, you could totally go there and purchase a bed, a mattress, spoons, knives, forks, bed sheets, and everything. And you're only going to pay perhaps a fraction of the cost of the store because there are times I would get a set of knives, maybe just $1 for one or $2 for one. Forks, I would get bowls. I would get a mattress for $150. I would get stuff that I can repaint myself. And and the good thing is that they were from the ship. So again, as I said, the quality was really good. So even if they were secondhand, they were really high quality. And that helped a lot with furnishing the apartments. Even if I have 7 listings, they're not always all filled. So sometimes I'd have to be moving one bed from apartment 1 to put in apartment 2 to accommodate the booking. Sometimes I'd borrow a bed from my mother or from a friend. I mean, you have to do what you have to do because eventually, with the money that you make, you will be able to buy proper furniture. I mean, things that you really feel happy that you have. Sometimes you have to be hiding the leg of a chair or a bed or something with a pot of flowers. But eventually, you know, with time
Christine,
and with
what
more
drives you?
money,
What
what
drives you?
drives me? I don't know. I sort of grew up watching HGTV. I don't know if you know HGTV, but I mean,
Absolutely.
it showed you how to do things yourself, how to change something old into something new, and honestly, I was driven. My uncle used to call me HGTV or Channel 20 because I thought I could do anything. I never had a lot of money. That's the thing. I was never rich. I was never well off. I didn't have well off parents. So I just thought the only way to do this is to work hard and to do it myself. So I did that and it worked, it worked.
There's so much talk about the impact of the pandemic, and it's obvious to anyone who's paid attention to the industry that the lockdowns pretty much crippled it completely. So I told my audience what I did for my units. I pivoted and I did local corporate rentals. I went long-term rentals for 1 year. And I've only just started receiving guests like 3 weeks ago. How did the pandemic and the lockdowns affect you? What did you do during that time?
How did it affect me, you saying?
Yeah, what did you do during that time?
Funny enough, as much as the pandemic made things more challenging, it's really our inability, or perhaps not being allowed to accept the guests that was the problem. Because guess what? The guests still wanted to come. But we had a new challenge. We were not allowed to receive the guests. We had to now be inspected, certified, and we had to meet a number of new requirements that we were not necessarily obligated to meeting in the past. For example, they wanted gated, they wanted security, they wanted hot water this, separate that, hand sanitizers, thermometers, also sick bays. And so that made it very, very, very challenging, the pandemic. And of course, most of us, although we were able to accept bubble guests, as they said, we were still able to stay sort of afloat for a little while with the bubble guests. But it did have an impact. So I'd say from January to July, it was just really difficult until I got certified and I was in phase 2. I must say it was difficult. It was and even in the time when we had no money, no guests, we had to meet those requirements posed by the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Health. And we had to spend money in order to reopen. Luckily, in July, I reopened. And like I said, the problem is not the guests wanting to come to my establishment. And so they came again in droves, and it just sort of ironed itself out from July until today. But it was challenging from January to July. Yeah. But luckily, I'm skilled in other places. So I'm also a seamstress. So I made hundreds of masks. Number of corporations asked me to make masks, 1,000, 500, and I just sort of moved from Super Host to Super Seamstress, and I just delivered those masks, and it helped me to just stay afloat, Yes.
For some of us who do this part-time, I guess we were able to survive with our 9 to 5, but the requirements were still onerous.
Yes.
Yeah, it was still onerous because then you had no obligations in your 9 to 5 because it changed, whether you work from home. And in terms of some of the new protocols that were put in place to get qualified, you had to have a separate luggage sanitization area. You had to have a mobilization plan. You had to have a plan for a doctor and call a telephone number. You had to put in all those stations, as you said, for sanitization. You had to have a new policy for laundry, for increased frequency for cleaning, new processes for cleaning. and printing of signage, which actually was
Yeah,
quite expensive, quite
very.
expensive. So there were quite stringent new rules that needed to be
And
adhered to at a time when people were not making any money.
yes, and as much as I sort of felt that it was a bit too much at the time, I can say safely today that it was necessary, and I still think it's necessary to have made those sort of changes and these new requirements. So I think, as difficult as they were absolutely necessary, to ensure the
And
safety
things that
of host and the guest. Yeah,
Yeah, things are not back to normal as yet. But what I find
not
happening, and
not at
actually I
all.
called you on that, a lot of people are, because you are certified property, they are putting your name down in the travel authorization application,
Oh yeah.
and it goes to the Ministry of Tourism and Health, and it's almost as if they don't expect them to check. So almost every 2 days, I get an email from the Ministry of Tourism asking for confirmation of these reservations, and of course, it's reservations and names that you have no idea. You've never seen them, and actually, I called you, you told me, and said, "Don't worry about that. That happens all the time." That was a surprise to me.
Yes, it happens all the time, but then we as hosts, especially the super hosts, we simply say we have no idea who the person is, and we send a reply to the ministry so they know what to do as a result.
You touched on a good point, and you said for 16 straight seasons you were supposed, and that was one of the things that impressed me about your track record. And a season essentially is a quarter. So every
Yes.
3 months you get an assessment by Airbnb. In terms of the
Right.
qualities for a super host, how do you become a super host? One, you must have an average 4.8 out of 5 stars rating
Mhm.
by your guests. You must have
Right.
10 or more stays. You must have a
Mhm.
less than 1% cancellation rate, and you must
Well, I have
have
few
a,
cancellations,
you must have a 90% or more
and I have a
or higher
hundred. You must
response
have.
rate.
I have 100% response rate. It
Mhm.
means that even if your guest is trying to communicate with you from London, and it's 7 a.m. for them, and it's perhaps 3 a.m. for me, I respond. I
And
respond instantly. I hear the ping and I respond.
And that's
Yeah.
important. That's important, Christine, because you're actually rewarded when you get
Yeah.
the Superhost rating, and it's a badge. It's a visible badge on your profile on Airbnb. It means that your listings are more prominent in searches,
Indeed.
and
Mhm.
if you have, I think, 4 consecutive quarters as a Superhost, you actually get rewarded. You get a 100
Yes,
US Airbnb
yes,
coupon,
about
which
yes,
which
you
can
do. A
can
coupon,
go
yes.
a little way to
Towards
alleviating some of your
yeah,
costs.
it goes towards a trip. But I'm so busy, Anson. Can you believe I've lost at least 4 coupons? I've never gone
You,
anywhere.
you- you see, now
I've
now
never
now
used
you
it up.
large.
Too busy.
Now you large. You don't need it. I wanted to say something
Not
about
what it is, Anson. I do need it.
the platforms for the benefit of our listeners. Airbnb perhaps is the most favorable in terms of the commission. They charge between 3 and 4% commission, and so it's no wonder that they are probably the leaders in online vacation rental bookings. You have Expedia, VRBO, and Booking.com, I think, has the highest. Booking.com, Christian, is about 15% commission they
And
charge.
another thing also
So,
is that Anson, they cancel at any time, the other platforms. They're not penalized for cancellations. You expecting them to show up at 3 o'clock and they can cancel. No, no penalties. And so it's not really reliable. But Airbnb has been very reliable. Unless there's a really good reason, you won't get a cancellation.
more than that, so Airbnb allows you to set your cancellation policy with a lot of flexibility.
Yes.
For me, I think if you cancel, less than more than 14 days, you're okay. But anything less than 14 days, um, I keep 50% of the booking. That's my
Imagine,
point. That's
answer.
my policy.
I don't have that kind of, I am a very moderate, I have mindset on moderate. It means that you will be given your full refund as long as you cancel the day before. So if you cancel on the day of check-in, you get penalized.
And that's fine. Mine is that way because I have a minimum 5 days. Because I don't do this full time, so I have minimum 5 day booking. I know that I lose guests because of that. But
You do indeed.
the awesome benefit about these platforms is that it allows you to set all of your unique parameters that suits you. So Christine has cancellation a day before, me is 14 days before, and each of us is allowed to set our own rates. My rates go
Indeed.
anywhere from $99 to 175 per, actually to 399 per night, and that all depends on the location. But let's zoom back in on you. So Christine, I mean, we have people listening right now, and saying, okay, this lady is a hustler. Tell me, how do I go about setting up my place on Airbnb? So just walk us through how you would advise anybody to set it up.
Well, first of all, you have to have a place that is cordial, clean, attractive, comfortable. That's the start. I mean, I have had people calling me to stage a place for them, it has to be photographed well. You take wonderful pictures. They have to be really true and genuine. You can't scam people. You have to, if you say you have a queen size bed, you better have a queen size bed. If you have a smart TV, you better have a smart TV. So you go down to the list of amenities, you ensure that you have them. You want to have fully equipped kitchens, you want to have comfortable living rooms, good ventilation, comfortable beds, hot water, they look for that a lot. A very good Wi-Fi sort of system, because people, although we're not really the ones responsible for our Wi-Fi service, but we do get a lot of flack for it, absolutely. I'm not trying to say anything about you, Mr. Ansem, but sometimes our
Can I say something
review
here?
depends
I'd like to say
on
something
the
here.
quality of Wi-Fi that we receive.
I would like to say something here. I want to recommend and urge all Airbnb or vacation rental hosts, please do not use extenders for multiple rooms.
Oh
I
my
have
God.
a separate modem and a separate connection for every single unit. I think every guest, every apartment should have its own Wi-Fi or some own internet connection. I recommend that totally. Continue. So good Wi-Fi, continue, or good
So
internet,
yes, good
continue.
Wi-Fi, comfortable beds, clean. Clean is paramount. Things must be clean. Now, for me, I don't think that I'm quite prepared and clean enough just because my house is clean or my yard is clean. I have to go to the road. I have to ensure the garbage bin looks good. The drains around my house or my street looks good. So sometimes I have to hire someone to clean the street, or I have to do it myself,
Wow.
because clean means clean surroundings. And I know, tell you something, St. Lucia does have a little bit of a problem when it comes to proper garbage disposal. And trust me, I have to pay for it dearly. So I have to wake up in the morning really early, go to the road 5:30, ensure that the dogs have whatever they have left behind is not visible in the morning. I have to hose it down. I have to ensure that people who did not dispose their garbage properly, that it gets sorted before the guests even wake up, because once they're awake, they start looking around. And don't try to sneak and hide your garbage behind your house, because I tell you, my guests are interesting. Sometimes it will be very much of a hustle for me. So I'm like, okay, I've cleaned the front of the house. The guests have arrived. Oh, what they can see is really good. But what if I did? I probably put the bin in the back. and I put some things, I've hid some things in the garden and so on. And behold, in the morning, they're like, Christine, where are you? Christine, are you down there? And I'm like, seriously? I didn't want them to come to the back. You have to have everything sorted out, because they don't just stay in one space. They come around, they look, they want to see the garden. They want to see the backyard, and everything has to be clean, because they will give you a rating. And everything that they see, they will talk about it if it's not pleasing to them. So if you want
Photos.
to do Airbnb, yes, they do. They see everything and they will talk about it. It is very, very, every time I have a booking, I've done this for 6 years, but every new booking has to be carefully orchestrated. You cannot take anything for granted. Imagine just this Christmas, I thought, my God, I'm burnt out because I am constantly having to change something, to clean something. My God, it's really a hassle. But I need to get some extra help. But like I said, in the initial stages, it's a lot of work. So if you want to start, clean surroundings, things that work, make sure the television works, make sure the fridge works, make sure the stove works, make sure everything is working quite well. I live in the city, and I live in an area that has a lot of sort of like a countryside feel. So there are lots of chickens, lots of dogs, lots of crickets. You have to alert them that these things actually exist, because when they come, they're going to be shocked, shell shocked. In the morning, they wake up and they say, Christine, oh my God, the roosters, the dogs, there was this dog that couldn't stop barking. And I thought, I hate that dog also. It's not my dog, it's the neighbor's dog. I have to be absolutely kind. So to make them feel happy, I'll say, maybe, can I prepare you breakfast this morning? Because, they didn't sleep and the air plugs did not work. And I have to find that chicken and get rid of that chicken. Either I give it to somebody or try and catch it. Because if I want my business to work, I have to make the guests comfortable. And Airbnb, it's a review thing. They have to be comfortable.
I will tell you that was a revelation to me as well. We're so used to hearing roosters crow that we actually don't hear them anymore. We don't hear them anymore. We don't hear the crickets.
That is true.
So Christine, looking back, if you had to do anything differently, what would it be? What would you do differently?
Actually, when I think about it, I mean, everything has had its own benefits. Things have gone great. There have been challenges. But if I were to change something, and I'm being honest, perhaps a little bit about the location. I just have too many crickets half the time. I have too many roosters, too many barking dogs. It really can make me crazy. And because I'm so sensitive when it comes to the guests and their comfort, perhaps I'll choose a more quiet countryside atmosphere where there were so many roosters, crickets, and barking dogs, honestly.
But interestingly, one of the key benefits of your location is that you're in the city. East Castries, you're in the city within 2 minutes drive to downtown. Surely there are benefits as well.
That helps.
There are benefits as well.
Because a number of my clients, they come on the ferry or they come through the Untitled Charles and they probably doing a connection flight or something, or they're moving on to the country, they're moving down to the south or to Sufre, and they just want to have that 1 or 2 night stay just while they're in transit. And it's really, really helpful to have my accommodation. It's comfortable, but it's really close to everything, and it's in the center. So they want to go to Sufre, they're in the center. They want to go to the north, they're in the center.
So Christine, final words from the final podcast guest for 2021.
I think being an Airbnb host or renting your accommodation is totally doable. I would encourage anyone to go through it. It's a really wonderful experience. You get to meet so many wonderful guests. Like I've done, I've made so many great friends. And it's really going to change your life if you put your heart into it. It's totally doable. You just have to follow the steps carefully. I'm here if you want my help. I'm always available. If you can find me, call me. I can guide you through it. I'm really having an enjoyable life experience. I wouldn't change anything at the moment. I totally love doing this. I can totally say that this is my life's calling. I am doing exactly what I want to do. This is
Wow.
exactly why I am here, is to do this. I love it with all my heart.
Okay.
And it'll be
All
fun
right.
having new hosts. It's fun, it's wonderful, it's doable, it's rewarding.
Okay.
So go for
Christine,
it.
thank you very much. We all out of our soil, and what a year it has been. Ending on such a high, I think I have laughed more in this podcast than any other episode. Christine was an absolutely amazing guest and an even more amazing host. She's quite accomplished, and I think she really gave us an insight into what it takes to be successful at this. Clearly, I still have so much more to learn. We started off this journey in I don't know if it's January this year. Just trying to share information, as much information as possible, to our fellow Caribbean nationals. And the whole objective is to share stories of persons who are trying to get into this field for the primary reason of financial independence, financial freedom, economic choice, and ultimately to get back more time to spend with yourself, your family, and your friends. We'll continue doing just as much in 2021 once we're alive. I'd like to especially thank my producer. You don't see him. The guests see him. Is Randa Lubin, production house Albies Media House in St. Lucia. Our primary principal partner, Bank of St. Lucia, all the great staff, Omari, Managing Director, Rolf, and his entire team, as well as Court St. Lucia, LG, Ferguson, Kenin, and all of the other people who made a contribution to making this podcast a reality. But most importantly, and finally, I want to thank the listeners and the viewers for coming along this journey with us, sharing the information, telling people about the podcast, all the way in Russia, Taiwan, even though, we primarily focus on the Caribbean, but we have Caribbean nationals all over the world. So until 2022, a couple of weeks from now, I want to thank you. I want to ask you to enjoy the rest of the festive season. Drink responsibly. Also be responsible about your interaction because of COVID-19 and the pandemic. Don't take any extra unnecessary, unsafe chances. Be safe, be well. From my family to yours, season greetings and a happy and healthy 2022. Cheers.
Bank of St. Lucia Visa credit card for everyday people, everyday moments.
To ruminate, to create your ultimate living space. And at Courts, you'll find what you need. Choose from our wide range of furniture, electronics, and accessories to complete your space. We're here and ready to assist. Give us a call to place your order. Shop online at shopcourts.com or visit us in store. So ruminate at Courts, bringing value home.
Congratulations and thank you for tuning in to the Caribbean's first property investing podcast. We want to help Caribbean people create wealth and achieve financial freedom through property investing. Our show provides general advice based on personal experiences and is for educational purposes only. For more information, resources, and past episodes, visit us at CaribbeanPropertyInvesting.com. Remember to click the subscribe button so you never miss a show. Let's go.